Thank you, Robin.
You've had all day to think about it, Tyler. Pick a straw. Pick a straw. Could be this or this or this.
I'm gonna put it on my to-do list and just random.org it and see which one's up.
Okay.
Just checking. Talked about last second.
Yeah.
Our expenses are high this month.
Always. We ready? Okay, I'm going to call the meeting to order. The first thing we need to do is approve the agenda. We're going to adjust from unfinished business A, the independent audit report. We're going to move it up under public patron concerns. So it'll be 6A, so we can get him in and out of here. And that's the only,
And do we need to act on the contract?
That in March.
Okay,
okay.
that's right.
All right, so I need a motion to approve the agenda with the, with the changes.
Ryan Ruda, approve we move agenda as amended.
Jill George, second it.
Ryan and Jill, moved and seconded to approve the agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, next thing, I need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Jill George, so moved.
Brian Schrevigal, second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, recognitions.
Yeah, I want to take the opportunity, given what we're seeing outside right now, it's apropos to recognize and show appreciation for Lance, Sam, and Tom and all their crew. You talk about a thankless job, all those positions, and yet they tirelessly go out and take care of things for us. It's not uncommon for Lance to be up all night, working the grounds. And so, and as a team, they all work together. Sam and I'll be together, well, not together, but on the phone together about 4 o'clock in the morning, go out and check it out to see what's going on. And people don't know that kind of work takes place. People just think we just roll the dice and say, let's have school or let's not have school. That's not what happens at all. It's a great amount of work that goes on, and we couldn't do it without these 3 fellows and their team. So thank you very much for everything you guys do.
Thank you, gentlemen. All right, we will move to the financials, and Mike.
Also, Mike does a good job.
Thank you.
Too late.
Give him a shovel.
Too little, too late.
Okay, page 3 of the warrants, just point out, we got some tax flow money from the county to the recreation center, $253,125.28. And then on page 4, down towards the middle, Rusty X Ford, we got the 2 new vans that you guys approved. So cost of $60,456. And so on page 5 at the bottom, the total warrants for the month, $526,088.79. And then on page 8, our cash balances are looking better because we got county money this month. So our cash balances are up a little bit better, especially the supplemental fund. Nothing really else to point out there. And then page 10 with our fund expense summary, we're percentages wise where we expect to be at this time. I don't see any problems there. And then of course you got the transfers. I did make a transfer on the 22nd to cover for the money that I sent to the Holcomb Recreation. And then after that's the high school and middle school reports. So if you have any questions.
Hey, Mike. On page 5, the, what does it say here? Train Us, Inc. What exactly is that? It says second year service AG. I didn't know what that was.
On page 5.
Oh.
That's agreement with Train to look at our HVAC systems.
Oh, okay. Makes sense.
I think that's probably chillers, right? It's the chillers.
All right.
Mother Nature's chillers are working just fine.
Yeah.
All right, if no one has any other questions for Mike, I'll entertain a motion to approve the financials at $526,088.79.
Ryan Trevigle, so moved.
Ryan Ruda, second.
Moved and seconded to approve the financials. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, no public patron concerns, so we will move to the independent audit report.
Okay, very good. In that binder that Robin handed out is the audit report. There should be a loose letter in the front of that, and that is the governance letter. Professional standards require us to communicate some of this stuff to you. You're responsible for your accounting policies, and most all of your accounting policies, the important ones for financial reporting anyway, are in Note A to the financial statement. There were no new accounting policies adopted, and the application of the existing policies did not change from last year. We noted no transactions that were entered into that didn't have proper authoritative guidance and consensus, and everything was reported in the proper period. Accounting estimates, your biggest accounting estimate is purchase orders or encumbrances, and we evaluated the key factors and assumptions used to come up with those, and didn't have any problems with those. They're reasonable in relation to the financial statement taken as a whole. We'll talk about the important notes A and D and E when we get back to the notes. No difficulties encountered in performing our audit. We did make a few adjustments. That first one, for the payroll liabilities, we do that every year. It's just your accounting software doesn't record those, so we go in and record those back as, put them back into cash and record them as a liability. There was one ad valorem tax that got posted to delinquents. Few other reclassification entries, no real cause for concern in any of those. No disagreements with management as far as financial accounting or reporting matters. There were no consultations with other independent accountants. One finding that we did have, one of the payments to Coonrod, I think this was kind of a popped up later for the sewer line deal, and it just didn't get, I'm sure it was talked about plenty, it just didn't get documented in the minutes, so we just want to make sure that all big expenditures get documented in the minutes for your records. Everything behind the notes is considered supplementary information, and we'll give you an in relation to opinion on that. So when we get back to that, we'll talk about that. So, any questions on the governance letter? I know I went kind of fast, but pretty routine. In the bound portion on page 1 is your independent auditor's report. Management is responsible for the preparation and fair presentation of the financial statement. Our responsibility is to express an opinion on that, and to do that, we gather audit evidence, and we believe that we did obtain sufficient audit evidence to be able to express our opinion. Since you use the state's regulatory basis of accounting, not GAAP. You do that GAAP waiver every year in July. So since you don't use GAAP, you get an adverse opinion on that. But in the opinion for the regulatory basis of accounting is an unmodified opinion, which is what you want. That's clean opinion. Everything was fairly stated as it should be. Supplementary information, which is everything behind the notes. In relation to the financial statement taken as a whole, everything was fairly presented. We also have some 2019 numbers in there for comparison purposes, and in relation to the 2019 financial statement, all of those are fairly presented as well. And then you had a single audit this year, so there's some reporting that's required by government auditing standards. And there's a couple letters in the back that I'll point out to you when we get back there. So, okay, page 1, or page 4, statement 1 is your financial statement. And this is basically a snapshot of your funds for the year, with beginning unencumbered cash, receipts, expenditures, ending unencumbered cash, add back your accounts payable, and you get your ending cash balances, which pretty much like that cash summary report that you see every month. So there shouldn't be any real surprises here. Your beginning unencumbered cash started out at 4.8 and you ended at 5.6, so had a pretty good year. And we'll talk about each of these funds a little bit as we go back. So your financial standing improves throughout the year. That's a good sign. So, and then page 5 just shows your cash deposits in the bank in relation to the financial statement. So, any questions on the financial statement? Nope. Okay. Page 6 starts the notes. Like I said earlier, summary of significant accounting policies. There haven't been any changes in those from the prior year, so I'm just going to kind of skip over that one. Note B, compliance with Kansas statutes. Each one of your funds is required by statute 10, 11, 13 to be not negative, but if it's a federal grant, there's another statute that allows you to go negative because most all of those are on a reimbursement basis anyway, so if you have the cash, you can run it in the red. So basically, that was just the ESSER grant. You were waiting on the reimbursement from the state, so not a big deal. Deposits and investments. Statutes tell you where you can deposit your money and what sort of investment that you can put it in as far as time deposits, open accounts, CDs. At the end of the year, all of your deposits were either adequately secured with FDIC insurance or securities held by the bank in your name. So all of your deposits were adequately secured. Your capital projects, just about done with the big upgrades for the bond issue. Just the HHS additions and renovations there had a little bit to go. That was probably paid in July or August. So all those projects have been completed. Your long-term debt with the bond issue, you made your first payment this year. And then you can see your payments over the next 5 years and then in 5-year increments through 2034 are right there. Note F is capers. Not really going to get into that too much unless you want me to. Not much change there from the prior year. Note G, your other long-term obligations, your post-employment benefits required by COBRA, your death and disability with CAPERS, your 125 plan, your compensated absences policy, interfund transfers. The general fund and the supplemental general fund are required to receive most all of the money, and then they're required to be spent out of the other funds, so that's why those transfers are necessary. So. Risk management, you have insurance to cover your risks. Contingencies, you get a lot of federal and state money, and there's always a chance that somebody could come in and look at it to make sure. And then if they found something that you would have to pay back. But management did not believe there would be any such disallowed claims. Coronavirus, I think we all know about that. No subsequent events besides the ongoing coronavirus stuff going on. So, any questions on any of the notes? I know that was fast. Nope. All right. Okay, page 14. Schedule 1 basically gives you a snapshot of the expenditures versus your actual expenditures versus the budgeted expenditures. And as long as there's no brackets around a number on the far right-hand column, there should be no problem. So no brackets, no problems. And then each one of these funds is breaking into more detail on the following pages. The general fund on page 15. And you can see your state aid is going up. Your base aid per pupil is finally going up a little bit from the state. So you've got a little more general fund budget to work with. So you spent exactly what you were supposed to last year. So supplemental general fund also based off of your base aid or your general fund budget. Spent that just like you were supposed to. Got a little bit of state aid in there this year. Did increase the levy just a little bit, but the valuation went down, so taxes didn't go up quite like projected, or a little bit better than projected, but not quite as good as they should have with the valuation going down like that. So, but your cash balance in there is remaining steady. That's always a good sign. So, bilingual education. One of the funds that's required to receive a transfer from general or LOB to be spent for the bilingual students, about in line with the prior year. Capital outlay, the levy went down. You lowered the levy a little bit there to be able to move it to LOB and to bond and interest. And so that's the decrease in the taxes. Expenditures way under budget, so you were able to get a little bit more money in there. Your ending unencumbered cash is at a nice balance there. Driver training fund, right in line with the prior year. Food service, right in line with the prior year. Professional development, right in line with the prior year. Parents as teachers, that got going last year. I think 19 was the first year it was funded, and then got some expenditures going on this year. Special education fund, you're required, you get the money in the general fund, it gets transferred over here, LOB tax on some, and then you send it on to the co-op for your special ed kids. Career and post-secondary education, the old vocational education fund, right in line with the prior year. Got a nice balance going on there. 4-year-old at risk and K through 12 at risk. Again, the general fund or the supplemental general fund is required to transfer into these funds. Your expenditures right in line with the prior years. Down just a little bit in the K through 12, but with school being effectively canceled for a month or and a half last year, that's not a surprise there. So, Capers. That's that silly fund. They transfer the money into your account and then 5 minutes later take it back out, but you've got to divvy it up based on your salaries for instruction, general administration, etc. So there was a little extra funding in there last year. That's the increase. I think in 2019 they just funded 3/4, and this year they caught back up to 4. Rec Commission Fund. Here you can see your valuation going down. That's the same 3.6 mil levy. And so it went down from 412 to 375,000 for their ad valorem taxes. And then the other taxes will follow in line with that. Motor vehicles about a year behind those. So your appropriation was down based on the valuation going down. And then again with the rec employee benefits on 29, again the same 1 mil generated $15,000 less. So. Page 30 are your non-budgeted special purpose funds. These are your federal and state grant funds, along with the non-budgeted gift fund, contingency reserve, student materials. Nothing really to point out here. You were able to get a little bit more into your contingency reserve, which is always a good sign. The federal aid funds all spent out just like they should have been. ESSER grant didn't get the receipt from the state until after June 30, so that was the negative balance. So nothing really to worry about on those pages. Your bonded interest fund, you collected your taxes and made your first payment, the first principal payment. You made an interest payment last year. There was some leftover money in there from the previous bond issue, so you've got a nice balance going there. Capital improvement fund, like I said, got most of your projects done. There was a little bit of interest that came in there this year, and so was spent out, so that fund's zeroed out. The district activity funds, these are at the high school, middle school, grade school levels. Nothing really to point out there. They ended the year about where they started. The agency funds, again, at the high school, middle school, grade school levels, right in line with the prior year. Nothing really to point out there either, so. Excuse me. Okay, on page 36 starts the appendix. If you look at page 40 and 41, these are your total federal dollars. So last year, June 30, 2020, you just got over the threshold of 750,000, 757,700. So you're required to have a single audit once you get to 750. I think you're going to have one of these for next year for sure, and maybe a next couple of years as that federal money comes in. They want it looked at every level. Even the spark money that you get, the state's going to get audited on it. The county's going to get audited on it. You're going to get audited on it. I mean, they're looking at the same dollar 3 times. It's kind of ridiculous, but that's the red tape you get with federal dollars. So anyways, yeah, so just so you know, you're going to be seeing these letters for the next couple of years. The first letter on page 36 is on your compliance, and we're not opining on the compliance, but we didn't find anything that we needed to point out. No significant deficiencies, no material weaknesses, which is what you want to hear. On page 38, we are giving you an opinion on the major program that we did audit, which was food service last year. And we give you a clean opinion on that. Everything was as it should be. Didn't have any problems with those. So, but going back to page 40, you can see each one of your funds, Title I. That second one is also partially Title I, Title I migrant education, etc. The big, like I said, the big one, if you go to page 41, was food service. And of that $757,000, we're required to look at 40% of that. And thank goodness food service covered that last year at 46%, so we were able to audit the food service program. Now next year, that could change. Your ESSER dollar allocation was 500 and some thousand?
This first year?
For ESSER 2.
Yeah, 595.
595. So we might be looking at an ESSER program, depending on, how long do you have to spend ESSER 2?
Till ESSER 2, we have till September of '23.
Yeah, so if we can get that spread out, we may be able to, I don't know. I'm talk to Mike about that when I call him tomorrow, but yeah, if you can keep under 750, it saves you having to do the single audit. But sometimes you just can't get away from it, so. But yeah, Ryan, you're fully aware of that. So, 42, the notes to the schedule of expenditure awards, just basically same as the financial statement, base accounting. No indirect cost route or rate was used. No awards passed through to subrecipients. Schedule of findings and question costs. The main thing to get out of there was that, no findings. Note B there, no findings, so. You do not qualify as a low-risk auditee because you use the regulatory basis of accounting. You have to use GAAP to be able to do that, and you have to have an audit for 3 years in a row before you can qualify as a low-risk auditee. So that's why you don't qualify. That's why we have to look at 40% instead of 20, 20, 25. 20? 20, yeah. All right, that's all I got. The Rec Commission report is right behind there. I just dropped those off to those guys. Didn't have any findings with them. If you flip to their page 3, you can kind of see they're eating away at some of their beginning, or their unencumbered cash. That valuation going down's not been helping them, but hopefully that'll turn around and they can get back to what they're up to. So, any questions on anything? I'll take that as a no. All right, very good. Let me see here. I need to do the data. I haven't done the data collection form for this yet. We've got a file with the federal data collection or federal clearinghouse. So I'll get those numbers keyed in for that. I'll send that to you, Scott, Robin, and Mike to look at. We'll file with the report with the state. And I dropped off a new engagement letter for next year's audit. If you get a chance, I took the rate up, I believe, 3%. And then I think that's all I got. So thank you for allowing us to work with you guys. We appreciate it. Nice, clean audit. It's always good to come out here. So we appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks Scott and Robin and Mike. And I never get the people at the schools right, but everybody, I mean, easy to work with. Records are in good shape. We appreciate that. So.
Thank you.
And once again, similar to the comments I was making earlier about, the weather call and making things work, the amount of work and minutia that goes into making sure we have a nice clean audit, between Mike and Robin and Norma, the building secretaries, the directors, I mean, everybody who's got access to funds, we're following our procedures and doing it in a clean manner. So I'm proud of them. And so I would recommend acceptance or approval of the audit report.
It's Ryan Root. I would move that we accept the audit.
Jill George, I'll second it.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the audit report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, Administrative reports, Dr. Meyer.
All righty, a couple things to talk about. This is year 5. Thank you very much, Pat. Safe travels. Year 5 for our KISA, in our KISA process. So we have our culminating OVT visit set up for March 25th. And then from that, what occurs is they make a report, they finish a report, and send it on to the Accreditation Review Council, the ARC, as it is known. Then they are the ones who make the actual recommendation to the State Board of Education as to our accreditation determination for the next 5 years. The OVT needs to have their work completed by April 17 in order to keep things going at the pace it needs to go. As you'll recall, our 2 goals that were chosen 5 years ago were relationships and relevance, and then we also have to pay attention to the processes that take place within those to impact those 2 things, and then also the board outcomes. And so we will be doing on March 4th or 3rd, whatever that Wednesday is, the first Wednesday, we'll be running a mock visit, if you will. The individual teams will work through the report so as to be prepared for the actual OVT visit as it gets turned in. The buildings have finished all their writing. It's on my desk now, and now I will be putting it all together into one big old document that gets sent on. So everything's kosher, right on pace where we need to be. We did have the option, or all districts had the option rather, to pause, given where we were in the cycle. The team thought, let's just keep going. We're in a good spot. Let's get it finished. And so that's why we're pushing forward and finishing it during this year, I didn't see much use in waiting a year. Let's keep things as normal as possible. So that's what's going on. Okay. Second thing to mention to you, we are once again looking at the possibility of writing 21st Century After School grant. This will be a 5-year, about $500,000 grant. But we have surveys being disseminated as we speak to elementary families and to the high school students. Our program, the one we're looking at, is unique to the state of Kansas in the fact that we are looking to truly involve the high school kids programmatically. They themselves will benefit from it, but also they would help direct the program itself, obviously with adult supervision or, oversight. We're not for sure yet. We're pursuing the grant, but work is taking place toward that. It provides after school or out of school academic setting, healthy lifestyles, snacks and whatnot from K through 5th grade. And last time we were pursuing this, our people said, yeah, we're interested in it. So then it provides help for the people who are trying to get home. They can pick up their kids from school rather than them just being at home. And also it gives extra tutoring opportunities or academic opportunities for the kids themselves. A couple just business things to talk about. The calendar committee, Mr. Jones, meets tomorrow. We are looking at 2 different calendars. The calendar committee needs to prepare 2 separate votes for the USD 363 people to examine, because the way the negotiated agreement is written, if the 5 days that were taken out of the calendar 2 years ago, if the negotiated agreement is not settled, that sunsets. It goes away. So the 5 days would be back in the calendar automatically. So we will have 2 separate votes taking place. One is a corresponding vote from this year, and we've put together a couple calendars. One is absolutely corresponding. The other one is provides for 5 days out at Thanksgiving. And then a separate vote, a totally separate vote, and this is going to confuse everybody. We have to take separate votes. We'll do that same exact process for the one with the 5 days back in, because if negotiations don't get settled, that one happens. Doesn't matter what anybody wants. It's tied to the negotiated agreement. So just so you know, the committee will come together tomorrow, basically say, yep, that all looks right. Many hours of minutia work has been spent on this, right, Robin? The numbers are correct. It's ready to roll. But when the world says, why we voted on 2 separate things, that's why. Because if we don't vote on it, negotiations don't hit or don't get settled, we'll have to come back to the drawing table. We don't want to do that. The insurance committee came together. We met with Bill DeMoss. It's too early. We won't really have any data for anything till April, but we will be bidding with 5 different companies. We've had a good run. We've been with United Healthcare now this is our 2nd year, and so that helps, but we're playing the hurry up and wait game. Probably be April before we get any numbers. So back that up to the calendar issue. Really boils down to two issues usually with negotiations: salary schedule and insurance. So the way the handbook is written, actually my job is written, it says I'm supposed to bring to the board by the April board meeting a calendar. We won't know numbers from insurance until April. So I mean, it's just kind of, we're going to do the best we can and we'll make it all fit. We do have a 5-year deal with VSP, that's the vision insurance, and we'll be looking for dental again. We were their first year with Mutual of Omaha, which is kind of cool because I grew up watching Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom, but it actually is an insurance company. So, vaccines. This is not put in stone yet, but it's supposed to be the 18th and 19th. Vaccines for the employees of USD 363 who choose to get the vaccine. It's purely voluntary, 100%. If a person chooses to do it, fine and dandy. The final final schedule has not been built, but what it looks like right now is Friday the 19th, which is the day off from school for USD 363, will be the day for our people to go over to Garden, I think it's the fairgrounds, to get the shot, but that's not totally set in stone yet. That's where it's headed, okay? There will be a sign-up sheet they'll be sending over to us. So if somebody changes their mind, says, no, I think I will do it now, great, we'll get you signed up. Somebody decides not to do it, that's fine as well. It's on them. It's their choice. So just because they filled out our survey that said, yes, I'm going to get it, doesn't mean they have to do it. But we're gearing toward next weekend. And the last thing to talk about, this is a celebration for Mike and me. We finally heard back from FEMA monies we've been working on since August. And the guy called us up and said that now they're going to do 100% reimbursement, not just the 75% previously. So it looks like if everything goes, we're crossing our fingers and holding our breath, we should be getting an additional $83,207 back from FEMA. Now, every dollar we get, that comes back to our general fund and LOB, but it also plays against what Pat was talking there. That pushes up into that single audit category. So I guess we could turn down the fund. No, don't do that. Don't turn down the funds. Way too much work went into all that. But we'll know in 60 days. And the reason I'm hopeful now is because the last message we received from FEMA was, all right, you put in for all this. This was $2,000 or $3,000, doesn't count. You can write an appeal for in the next 60 days if you want to. Well, we're not going to. Mike and I looked at it as, why? It's pennies after the pound. We're not going to do that. So, but that kind of puts a timeline on it. So we could be getting really, really good news, $83,000 worth in early April. So at least that's what we hope, right, Mike? And then we'll start playing the game again.
As long as it's not
Everything been
April
submitted
Fool's.
through,
Yeah.
everything's been submitted through what month on FEMA?
That was submitted up through August.
Through August.
Yeah, so we could, and we keep our eye to it, every little expenditure and we did put in a second round, and it got totally denied. I thought, well, what the heck, put it in. But we frankly don't have to buy the kind of stuff that they will fund anymore because we are rich in the way of hand sanitizer. Now, at some point in time, it's a finite thing. It might, yeah, there you go. Matt has his little bottle. So we continually look at anything that comes through and say, well, would that count? Would that count? Because we could submit those monthly, and we just wait until we have a big enough pile of it. Any other questions?
Calendar committee, 4 o'clock?
4 o'clock. I'm pretty sure. Randy, 4 o'clock? 4 o'clock. Come on in, it's fun.
Cutting into my goat feeding time. All right, let's move to buildings. Okay. Grounds.
Nothing further till my report.
Transportation.
I have nothing further than what's in my report.
Saw the vans the other night there at Goodland. They do.
We're still working with Burton on doing some kind of decoration, we're not sure yet. Gonna be really aggressive orange bowl,
Longhorn.
longhorn.
All right, food services. Okay. Technology, Mr. Ackerman.
Nothing further.
Okay. We'll move to principals and Mrs. Novak.
Well, I
I'd like to add to my report, Gayla Lofink worked with us last week through the Service Center. She's been doing our professional learning with us. And she helped guide our teachers. We started the 3 weeks before school started on our curriculum, continued on with that, looking at the competencies. And she helped the teachers continue on their third 9 weeks, taking the competency and breaking it apart into looking at the nouns and looking at the verbs and being a little more explicit with the standards. And then they turned what they found in the standards into I can statements, which are statements that would be presented to the students and then put up on the board, where at the end of that lesson, the student, it would be, I can do so and so and so and so. So she helped work through with the teachers on their third 9 weeks standards, and then our professional learning on Friday, we will continue on with that and go into our fourth 9 weeks. And then next year, we'll just keep picking it up and keep working with the document. Okay.
Thank you. All right, Mrs. Tyne.
Well, that was what I was going to talk about too. So I can just say ditto and go sit back down. No, our day is on Wednesday. And so Gayla will be coming in to work with teachers on their common assessments. And one of the things that I asked that she focus on is the why behind that. Why do we need common assessments? How is that going to help our students and our teachers kind of be on the same page and have the same standard for that assessment? So we look forward to working on that. I have 2 grade levels that'll be working on the fourth 9 weeks. And 1 grade level that will be working on the third 9 weeks, all subject areas. So looking forward to that work, and then we will also continue that on Friday for part of our professional learning.
All right, thank you. Mr. Hilton.
Just 2 things to add to my monthly report. One was feedback from the students on electives that they are interested in next year. 2 ones that were way out in front. One was adding a ceramics or pottery class, which does have an ID for the state, so we could make that a course, an elective option. And then another one was CAD, a computer-aided design, building. We had done one similar to that in an unhooked where they could build and design houses and models and things like that. So we're looking at trying to get those into the lineup for next year. We had over 60 6th and 7th graders this year who said they were interested in that. So that was a lot. So we're looking to get those into our schedule for next year. So that's exciting. And then to the 8th grade parents, we will have information either late this week or early next week, inviting 8th grade families to participate in planning for the 8th grade lock-in celebration. It's already time to start thinking May again. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Johnson.
Wanted to share some information to add on to next Monday, February 15th. We will have our pre-enrollment night. In the past, last year we had it as a college and career night, but with COVID, colleges coming out, not coming out, careers, some of those were a little bit put on hiatus. But the National Guard still wanted to come out and set up a booth, so National Guard will be here recruiting students during that time. We've also worked with Dawn at the college, and the outreach classes that we have through the college right now are construction group, the nail tech, and then our small engine that's going to proceed. They'll be sending out some teachers to kind of talk to our next year's juniors and seniors about those programs that they will have. And then in working with Nicole Hahn from EcoDevo, Empirical, the new company that will be coming to Finney County, we'll have some representatives that night to talk about students in regards to the industrial maintenance pathway. That'll be through Garden City Community College, and then also talking to parents about potential job opportunities that they may have. So that'll be going on next Monday. We'll start with freshmen at 5:45, sophomores at 6:30, and juniors at 7:15. We have an alert now that's scheduled to go out tomorrow night to talk about pre-enrollment, which again will give us the opportunity to see where we can provide some of those electives. And then on February 23rd, we'll be offering the pre-ACT to all freshmen and the ACT to all juniors. So we'll do that in the morning. Due to try to make sure everybody's social distance, we will be having the sophomores and seniors will do a remote learning day that day. And then the afternoon, they will all meet with their seminar teachers via Zoom to check in for attendance and then to provide instructions on what they needed to log for that day. So just a couple upcoming events for us. Thank you.
Thanks, Jason. All right, you got the rec minutes and the service center, High Plains.
I do want to follow up just one little thing on what Jason just talked about, the remote day. I'm pretty sure I told the board about this. I know the teachers know about it and everybody else, but the plan this year is if we use up 4 snow days or 4 days we're off school, starting on that 5th one, we'll start having remote days. So when Jason was talking about doing that remote experience on the 23rd, that's a good opportunity for us to practice with it. I mean, we did it last year, right? We did a heck of a lot of remote. But since we came up with this plan back in October, I've been talking to the principals, to talk to their teachers to be ready. Well, we've used 3, so we'll see what happens over the next couple weeks. Hopefully we won't miss any more days. But if we do, we'll roll to the remote on the 5th day out. So there's 1 more day yet to be given. So just wanted to add that in. As far as the High Plains goes, pretty normal meeting. Evaluation work, negotiations, starting the recruiting. Marcy did talk about the impact of if the federal $15 minimum came into play, it would be an additional $880,000 in cost to the co-op, but I don't think she's aware of yet that that does not hit us. The state sets our minimum wage, not the feds. And so I called and talked to Donna Whiteman about that, lead attorney at KASB. So could it occur? Yes. Will it occur? Very doubtful. Particularly given what Donna shared with me is the fellow who had brought that up for the last 30 years, got unelected, so there's no one there at the State House to carry that mantle. I'd love to see all our people make more money, but to go from $725 to $15 like that, or over even a 2-year period, 3-year period, is fiscally very challenging. So that was the High Plains meeting.
Okay. We will move to unfinished business and KASB policy update.
Look at you. You jumped right over
You know it.
Good job. All right, this is second month, the read of the potential updates to be adopted in your board policy book. If you recall, the majority of them deal with health issues, providing language for call-off school for also health reasons besides just inclement weather. Setting the policy for when staff and students may return from quarantine and whatnot, and including the health officer in that play. Honing in on not just this gang behavior, honing in on its actions versus what someone might look like, which I support that as well. They updated the form on the dropout interview form that is to be used when a student who's under the age of 18 wants to no longer go to school. The principal and or the designee from that principal has to go through a interview and say to the kid, if you graduate from high school, you'll make this much money. Graduate with an AA, you'll get this much money, all the way through a PhD. The problem with that form is, Jason, off the top of my head, I don't have the number in my head anymore, but the first number is pretty high because, over a lifetime of living, of working, like $300,000 or something like that. And the kid said, fine, give it to me. It's what you'd get over 40 years of work. So anyway, they updated that plan, and then they've provided a sample wellness plan. We have our own wellness plan, but we could pick and choose from this if we wanted to. I would recommend adopting all of the KASB policies updated as presented.
I'll move we update, or we adopt them, the new policies from KSAB.
Okay, Ryan Schreibel.
Ryan Ruda, second.
All right, been moved and second to approve the KASB policy updates. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, new business, teaching in the COVID era.
All righty. Ever since March 13th, my birthday, a year ago, that's when schooling changed in the state of Kansas. And so with that, we pivoted to being remote. I thought at the time we were advantaged in the fact that we know our kids so well, and we are already a one-to-one pretty much across the district. There was, yes, there's a learning curve, absolutely learning curve, but we're prepared more so than other districts, which I know. Then we came into the new school year, and it's just, at this point is the new way of going about having school. And I cannot be prouder of our people. They've worked very hard trying to maintain and move forward and not just use the COVID excuse, for education. Is it different? Absolutely, it's different. And we're growing from it. I'm not going to sit up here and say, I'm sure glad this happened, because I'm not. I'm also not going to sit up here and just cry in my Wheaties because, this year and a half's been lost or whatever, this year. It hasn't. It has not been. We've learned from it. Kind of the theme of the night, the amount of minutia and detail that goes into this, though, for teachers who, for years and years, kids showed up and we taught them and, move on to down the road. It's a lot more different pieces of thought that need to take place in order to ensure the same educational opportunities. And we won't just mail it in because this is the only year that kid's a 7th grader or that kid's going to be a 3rd grader. I mean, it's not right. So we won't do that. And so the principals have been leading their teachers with a variety of different approaches of maintaining as normal as possible, knowing it's not as normal as it was this time last year, at least. So with that, and I know I've been writing to the board about this and talking about this in public, I thought it was important to bring some teachers forward and just, here's what I've seen. And what I'm looking for, I'm excited to hear, the areas where, hey, we discovered this. Look at this. This works well. But I also want to hear, we've got some growth to do in this. There's certain things that we're still looking to get better at. I know I've told you this for a couple different times, if our king of the world, we will have some aspect of remote learning in our schooling options down the road. I don't know exactly what it looks like. I don't know if it's exactly K-12. Don't know. The younger the students are, the more structure has to be at home. But we've been engaged for a while now, trying to figure out the characteristics of the successful remote student, and by the way, the characteristics of the successful remote teacher. So we're looking to grow and learn from all this. It's a great dissertation topic, Mr. Helton. If the guy wanted to take that on. So with that, I've asked the principals to bring forward some teachers, and they've done so. So we'll start at the beginning. We'll start with Ms. Novak.
When Dr. Myers brought this to our attention, I first, right off the bat, thought of Amy Albright, who has done a remarkable job with remote teaching. I don't want to take her thunder, and like I did Randy's, and tell you all about it, but Erica Galliard's another one. She couldn't make it tonight, so her and Amy got together, and Amy's going to talk for her. So, Amy Albright.
I'm Amy Albright, and I teach first grade at Wiley. I was given the opportunity to be the remote teacher for first grade, but when school came to start, we didn't have any parents who chose to do remote learning in first grade. But we have had numerous families who've had to go into quarantine because of COVID, and so we kind of dipped our toes in it. The way that I have been doing remote learning with my quarantine kids is I've been fortunate enough to where my parents are able to log in to Zoom with their students, and so we played around with a few different things. We found it easiest that if they just Zoom in at 8 o'clock in the morning when school is starting, and we pretty much just Zoom all day long. That way they're not missing any of the instruction, because most of the learning, just with your conversations that you're having with your littles during that instruction time is some of the the best part of that instruction. So I felt that it was important for them to be a part of those classroom conversations rather than me taking the time to separately record their lesson just on, here's what you're going to be doing today, this is the activity, go. And so I've been fortunate enough to be able to do that with all of my quarantine kids, and I've had over half of my class in quarantine with 5 at one time. So it's been a challenge. And it definitely would not have been able to happen that way if I didn't have the support of my parents or they weren't able to help the children, because obviously with technology there are some setbacks. You know, we had disconnecting with Wi-Fi. We had, oh, the computer's not working, or, oh, the school computer you sent home isn't turning on, or, oh, what's the password? And, you know, so it did present some challenges. Thankfully, with Band being our main communication tool, I was able to message parents with immediate feedback, you know, if they had an issue, or if I was having an issue, or if I had a question, and having the liaisons being able to take the students' materials and work that they need to them has been awesome as well. So that's kind of how we've been doing it in first grade, and my other two colleagues in first grade were doing that the same way. In kindergarten, they do have a full-time remote student as well, so they have dealt with the quarantines that have come in and out as well as a full-time remote. They've chosen to do it a little bit different because in kindergarten, they have a lot of the purposeful play. So with that, you have, you know, the social skills and, you know, things like that. So they started, I'll just read what Erica sent me. She said, starting out with the remote in kindergarten, we did live teaching. But with the purposeful play and a lot of movement, we decided that the best way to meet both in-person students and online students was to record the lessons. This allowed the online students to fully see the screen and instruction. Social skills is extremely important, as well as our philosophy with purposeful play in kindergarten. These areas have been a challenge to reach with the remote setting. And so that's another thing that we've been seeing in first grade. Even though I was Zooming all day long with my students that were in quarantine, it's hard to give them the small group instruction that we do pretty much. You know, I do small group instruction for the phonics. I do small group instruction for their guided reading. I do small group instruction for math. And so being able to do that effectively has been a challenge, as well as social skills in first grade are also just as important, even though we don't have the purposeful play. But we've done the best we can, and I think with resources and everything that we do have here in Holcomb, we've been able to effectively, you know, reach each student when they are unable to attend. And we've even also gone as far as, I had a couple of students who had a death in the family or had to be gone for more than 1 or 2 days, and I reached out to the parents and said, hey, would you be willing or able to have your child Zoom with me while they're gone too? So not only were they just Zooming with me when they were in quarantine, also on an extended leave. So that was kind of nice to try that out as well, to see if, you know, that would be something we could possibly do in the future too. But it's a bit of a challenge with the younger ones because it does require a great deal of adult supervision. You know, no matter how many times we work with our Google Classroom or on the computers in the classroom, as soon as they go home, they forget how to log in, or their home computer looks a little bit different than the school computer they're working at, or the iPad isn't compatible with something that, you know, the school computer was. So there's a lot of challenges there, and it just isn't feasible without somebody there to help them at our level. So, do you have any questions?
Thank you, Amy.
Thank you.
Randy?
Okay, well, one of the things that we've done with all things COVID is sometimes things come up at the last minute, and so you are flexible and you figure out how to work with it. So this morning, I heard from Brooke Byer and Keely Shelton, and they said, just in case there's an issue with roads or anything like that, we're going to go ahead and we're going to record our presentation, because we had talked about that being an option before. This is something that they've worked on and had to learn in order to present instruction to students that are at home or if they are pre-recording it. So this was a great opportunity for them to kind of show some of the stuff that they're doing on a daily basis. And I'm just going to go ahead and play it for you.
Good evening, this is Keely Shelton and Brooke Byer with Holcomb Elementary, and we are here to discuss teaching through the COVID era. we have compiled opinions and information, not only from us two, but from all of HES staff, so you guys can get an all-around idea of our feelings and the support that we've had through this.
All right, a few of the things we want to share with you are some of the things we've struggled with since last March, what we've pushed through, some of the challenges we faced, what we're still working on, and what are the positives that have come out of this.
Some of the things that we've struggled with are incorporating differentiated instruction, especially when we're in a higher COVID level.
I'm just going to stop. I did watch this before, so I just wanted to talk a little bit more about that, but it's kind of like Amy was saying, that it is difficult to be able to differentiate that instruction when you have to keep them in certain areas of the classroom, because in an elementary classroom you are trying to pull them to you, and a lot of times we're having kids move around the room, and so if we are at a level 4 something like that, we have to kind of keep them in their area. So that has been a little bit difficult, even though we've had Edgenuity to help a little bit. That's just not something that we can do much. We can do it a little bit of the day, but the kids get tired of it.
Having enough seating in order to space students 6 feet apart, working one-on-one with students, the fear of the unknown, and internet access for homebound students.
One of the things that the teachers have talked about a lot is just that feeling of not knowing what's coming next and what they might have to be prepared for. And as teachers, you know, we like to be prepared and we like to know what is coming. So that has been something that we've all struggled through as we've figured out how to live life now.
All right, we've pushed through a lot over the last 11 months. One of them is adapting lessons to meet the needs of learners, engaging remote students and helping them feel like they're a part of our school community, creating an organized plan for quarantine and homebound students, that being from the office viewpoint, Mrs. Time, the teachers. It really is a group effort. Delivering instruction and materials to students at home, whether they are remote or homebound. The 5th grade does scheduled Zoom meetings. The 4th grade does pre-recorded instructional videos. And 3rd grade has a digital lesson plan and schedule with some pre-recorded lessons, and Mrs. Shelton has the option of Zoom for her students. And also learning about technology that's new to us.
Some of the things that we are still working on is continuously learning how to use online resources. This is one example that we are doing. We were not able to physically be there due to just, road conditions and weather. And so this was one way that we wanted to show you guys that we have adapted and we can learn how to use online resources. Some of the other things that we use are iMovie, Dojo, Screencast-O-Matic, and then of course Zoom. We're still working on parent communication. This is between all grade levels, teachers, and the school itself, just making sure we're doing an overall job and making it all connect in the same amount of ways. Adapting quickly and effectively when changes occur, and using digital checks for understanding.
All right, so even though this past year has been less than ideal, we have found several positives within this COVID era. So one of the things is that we've become, it's second nature to just sanitize work areas and our hands throughout the day, which is just an overall good habit. Tech Tuesdays during our back to school professional development were really helpful for a lot of us teachers who were trying to learn new formats and new programs, and we were able to learn from each other because we do have experts in different areas, and so we were able to help each other out. Students and teachers want to be at school. I think we learned that after last spring that, we just want to be in school and we'll do whatever it takes. So we appreciate your support in keeping us in school. Parent communication has improved, and we work really hard to maintain positive relationships with those remote students and help them feel like they're a part of our school community and involved still. More effective team collaboration, and we use the standard competencies to ensure students are understanding grade level instruction and aren't missing out on anything.
The last thing we want to leave you guys with is just saying thank you. We have really appreciated all of the support we've been given, whether it's Dr. Myers, you guys as the board, or even Randy. Us as teachers, I know you guys don't see a lot from the outside looking in, but we just want to make sure we tell you thank you.
Thank you.
Do you guys have any questions that I can answer for you?
Thank you, Randy.
I asked Mr. Parker to represent the middle school tonight. He has stepped up tremendously as a sixth grade team leader this year. He's collected some great qualitative data on how students feel the year has gone, how the spring went, and I think there's a couple student interviews in there, so I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Parker.
Mom's in here for me. Here we go. All right, so.
Don't use this.
Okay.
You can use mine. Okay, sorry. I don't know if that's better.
You're fine.
Thank you.
This one right here has got a long cord. We probably want to use this one.
Yeah, that'll work.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. All right, so I'm taking a look at it towards how the students kind of see, the past year and how COVID's kind of affected learning at HMS. So some of the topics that I'll be talking about is the impact of how it's impacted our students. I conducted just a small sample survey of just some really powerful results that the students gave us about how they felt going into last spring and how they felt, starting this fall with COVID. I do have a couple student reactions, just some very short interviews with a few students. And then I'll talk about some of the interventions that we have put in place that have been pretty successful at the middle school. So first, how has COVID affected our students? We've seen a lot more students have missed school this year than normal, whether they've been in quarantine or whether they've been sick themselves. That has been something that has affected our students, just that not being in class as much. I think the stress the past year that these students have felt and the emotional trauma, I don't really think we know how that's really going to affect them yet, but I do feel that it's there, and we have seen that a lot with our students at the middle school. And just the students have had to deal with more of the social effects of COVID. The higher levels we've gone, the level 4, they've had to social distance more, and they're not being allowed to be with their friends or, giving hugs to their friends, and just those little small things that these students at that age, they need. And I think because of that, they've kind of gone to more technology with their phones and things like that. So I think that social aspect will be something that we kind of have to deal with as we get further along with COVID. So some surveys, these are just some of the results that I thought were pretty powerful, that when I conducted this survey with my sixth grade students, I thought these really stood out to me. The first one was about 50% of the students liked online learning. They liked it because it gave them more freedom to wake up, they could get their work done, and then they had the rest of the day for themselves. However, 42% did not like it. And the reason why they didn't like it was the stress that it entailed. A lot of the students were in charge of making sure their younger brothers and sisters making sure that they were taken care of. Mom and dad were working, so they were in charge of getting their younger brothers and sisters online for their classes. They had to make lunch and just basically take care of those younger siblings. And that just added to their stress. And by the time they got to their work, they were tired. And then about 8% really weren't sure how they felt. They didn't really like it, but they really weren't against it. The second one that I found was about 2/3 of the students believed that the online education leads to more discipline issues because they didn't really understand how to stay organized. I know at the middle school, when a student has 5 or 6 classes, they had 5 or 6 different Google Classrooms that they'd have to kind of organize and go through to find their work. And that caused a lot of stress and just the extra freedoms that they weren't prepared for. About 75% of the students also felt that remote learning gave them anxiety because they lost the interaction with their friends. A lot of those students, when we went to remote learning in March, didn't see their friends again until we came back in September. And that caused a lot of kind of the anxieties because of the loss of the social time with their friends. And then last one, about 80% of the students felt classroom teaching was more effective and an interactive way for learning than remote. So we want to be in the classes, the students want to be in the classes, so we've really worked hard at the middle school to social distance, to sanitize the areas, and they've done a really good job with that. So I interviewed a couple students just to kind of give you their thoughts about how COVID has affected learning for them.
So COVID-19 has affected learning because, some kids like to learn in groups better. They like to get better understanding. They like work in groups. And since COVID-19 has come up that you can't work in groups anymore at school, it's supposed to be spread out, so don't spread.
Alright, so the way COVID has affected the way I've learned is that I can't really do group assignments, and I can't really sit next to my partners.
Our students have done an excellent job maintaining social distancing, making sure they have cleaned their areas, and they've done a great job wearing their masks. We've been very proud of our students for the effort they put into making sure that we get to remain at school during this difficult time. And then finally, some of the interventions that we've incorporated to help our students. Mr. Helton and Mr. Johnson have started doing some focus rooms during our morning homeroom times. They started this after a lot of thought and just put into it. They started this in the second semester where they pull students that need some extra time, maybe and help that are struggling with grades, attendance, just some social things they might need help with, and that's been very beneficial for our students. They do this on Tuesday and Thursday mornings. We do daily check-in. If we have a student that is in quarantine or is not in school for COVID reasons, the homeroom teacher of that student will contact that student with a daily check-in, whether it's through email or a phone call or Zoom. And I'm sure other teachers throughout the day also check in with those. But the homeroom teacher does do that on a daily basis. One of the things that we heard from our students at the very beginning of the year was they were confused with the organization. They struggled with knowing where to find the information to do their work. So one of the things that we did this year to help our students in quarantine was we came and created one Google Classroom for them, and it's called the Remote Learning Classroom, and all the teachers for the grade level place the information that they need in that classroom. So that way the students go directly to that classroom. They have one classroom instead of 4 or 5, and it kind of helps with their organization. Again, this year we continue to offer morning and after-school HIP. That just provides extra help for students if they need help on homework or just extra time to work on things. One of the things that I'm very proud of this year that we've done at the middle school is we have really strived to improve communication with families, whether that's through our Facebook page or contacting parents just from our homerooms and just with our families. One of the things I do in my science classroom is I send out a weekly newsletter, and in my weekly newsletter, I talk about what's happening in the upcoming week. I give them the assignments. I talk about things we've done the prior week, just to kind of keep them informed, and then if they have questions, they can ask. But we've really strived to really improve our communication with families. And the number 6, the last intervention that we've been working on is just building those authentic relationships, just showing the students that we care. I mean, all teachers do that, but we really have strived and trying to put in that time with them, just getting to know them outside the classroom, going to lunch with them and talking to them, just getting to know how they feel about things. So we've really tried to focus on those authentic relationships this year. So does anybody have any questions? All right.
Thank you, Mr. Parker.
Thank you.
Well, from here, I will introduce our guest from the high school tonight, Mr. Stephen Davis. He got back in town in time enough that he was able to come. If not, I would have been sharing the message tonight. So I'll just have him step up there and share your words of wisdom.
Well, the bad thing about going last is everyone has already said the good stuff. So, as Mr. Johnson said, I'm Stephen Davis. I teach sophomore and senior English. And when he asked me to come and present in terms of COVID and how we adapted, I was thinking that really there are 3 phases to it, at least in my experience. We had March where everything just went kerplooey, and we were trying to figure out what to do with that. And I think everybody was on a steep learning curve, especially me, in that, when it came to digital teaching and even digital learning, I was still back at the packet day. And so that was a big change and switch. Matter of fact, I think I learned more than the kids did in regards to that. But one thing that I did notice in terms of teaching with having to deal with COVID is you got to have that interaction. And I think that's been probably the biggest challenge. And I would say the one thread that you've heard from all the teachers is having that one-on-one interaction with students. And it's not impossible, but it is difficult to do that through electronic medium. Now, going from March to the end of school, there were some kids who were really excited about not being in school, others not so much, but I did hear from many individuals how they missed those opportunities, those quintessential high school opportunities, because COVID came. And yes, they're not in school, big deal. They're not doing their baseball, they weren't finishing out their basketball, they didn't do prom. I mean, there are a lot of those neat activities that, especially for the seniors, did not happen. So I think if there's another thread to this, is that there are some who felt like they had some lost opportunities. And I think that is with everybody. And unfortunately, that's just a fact of life. And as teachers and as parents and as everybody, there's only so much we can do with that. But that was stage 1. And I mean, I think that we ended up doing a fairly decent job with that, given that, it literally our world shrank from, everything to basically the 4 corners of our room. Now, stage 2, or I should say maybe a second part to COVID, is we were afraid that when we came back to school that we would go into remote learning. And so it was, I don't know if you say suggested, highly encouraged that we would go into some kind of program, which was Edgenuity. And again, there was another learning curve, and that involved everybody with that. There are some good things that occurred from that, in that it is a structured program. There are some bad things about that. It's a structured program. And again, I think there was some frustration in that. There wasn't a lot of flexibility. I mean, it's nice if you're very self-motivated and self-paced, you can sit there and just go right through it. If you're not, there are some issues with that. It is what it is. As a matter of fact, those kids who tend to do well in a classroom setting tended to do well with the program, and those that didn't tended not to. It was really interesting to see how the grades came out at the end of the semester, and that, the kids that I was expecting to have A's and B's, they were there, and the kids that, weren't doing so well, they were still down there too. But the nice thing about it is it did get the job done. I know that there are a lot of people who complained about it being sterile. Well, yeah, it is. There are a lot of people who are, it felt very confining. Yes, but given what we started with at the beginning of the semester, thinking that we go complete remote, and thankfully that never did happen. I know that as a school district, we stressed over and over again, we did not want to close down. And thanks to you, thanks to everybody, that did not happen. Now, for me, part 3 in terms of this COVID learning is that I'm having more instruction in my class. The downside with the Edgenuity is it's a canned program. So I literally would not have to do anything. Now, did I? Yes, I would get up there and I would teach. Now, you have to remember, I'm in a classroom and I have these remote kids on the other end of the line that are in front of their computers. And so I would try to incorporate, being in front of that camera, talking to the kids out in the classroom and going back and forth just to keep that contact. That was tricky. I'm not going to say that was the greatest thing in the world. That was tricky. It works, but it does take an awful lot of work to it. Now, in terms of I guess you can say phase 3 of our COVID plan, we do have more instructional, at least in my classroom, it is flat out more instructional. We're able to do more partner work, group work, because our level has gone down. It still is a challenge to have those kids on the other end be a part of the class. Now, the high school, and it's been very nice, is that we have a liaison who is responsible for those kids. So if they don't show up at my class, there's somebody there who's going to go and chase after them. All I have to do is worry about making sure that my link is open and that they're there, and then I try to interact with them at that moment. Now, that doesn't mean I don't send out emails, but I do, but I don't have to do it right at that moment. There's someone else who will do that. Matter of fact, I'm going to give a big shout out to Bobby Smith, because, you did not miss a class. She would sit there and chase you down, and those kids, they thought, oh, we're not in school, nobody's keeping track of us. Well, they found out very quickly that was not the case. But it has been an experience, and really the trick is to try to keep them in, just to try to keep that contact with them, and not just that contact, but to feel like that they're part of something. And I think that has been probably the biggest challenge, and again, that you've heard throughout all this, is to sit there and have them feel like they're a part of something larger. Simply because if they're doing remote learning, they're in a room, and odds are they're in a room by themselves. How do you make sure that they feel like they're part of something larger? And that has been a challenge, and that's something that I, as a teacher, have tried very hard to do. I wish I could say that, I was recording all this and they can see it later. No, I would be in front of my computer, and at times I'd be with the kids out in the classroom, and other times I'd be right in front of my computer, and I would be talking with them, I'd be chatting with them, doing whatever I could to make sure that they knew that I knew that they were there. So it has been an experience. I've been doing this for a while. I won't say how long, but when I first got into teaching, if you were to tell me, hey, by the way, you're going to be teaching kids and they're not going to be in your classroom, I'd be like, you're nuts. It has been an interesting experience, but I have found, and I think everybody has found, that really when it comes right down to it, end of the day, you still have to teach content, okay? End of the day, there has to be some sort of accountability. But I have to say that at the absolute end of the day, you have to have that contact, that connection. And if I may mention a little story, and elementary will be, really happy with this. When I have a little girl, okay, and last year when this all hit, she was in the 2nd grade. She's in the 3rd grade now. And when we went remote, I mean, that lifeline of her class being on there, just to see their faces and talk to them was tremendous. She's an only child, and that was her only real interaction. I mean, I tried getting play dates with all these other people, and of course, they're like, no, COVID, we can't do that. That was her lifeline. So, you know, when we talk about remote learning and just being with somebody else remotely, it may not seem much, but it literally is better than nothing. And I do appreciate the school district for having done that one-on-one. The last school district I was at a few years back, come to find out how they did their remote learning was with packets. They had no one-on-one contact. They could not access them to the computers. They couldn't do anything. It was literally they would come, pick up their packet, and go and work, and then they would bring it back. So thank you very much. I know it hasn't been a lot of fun for all of us, and I'm hoping that this whole COVID epidemic eventually does burn itself out. But in the meantime, I would please believe us when we say from the bottom of our hearts, we're doing the best that we can. Just be patient with us, and we'll make sure that this works, and we won't lose kids. We won't lose kids. So thank you very much.
Clap if you want.
Thank you.
Any general overall questions for the teachers, the principals? I mean, you see me and you see the principals a lot. You got teachers here.
I just want to say thank you to you guys. I mean, our kids really have some great teachers in all the schools, and as a parent, we really appreciate it. We know how hard you guys have really worked over these last 11 months, and it hadn't been easy, so thank you.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Final thing I do want to say on that is, you know, we have learned, we've learned a lot about all this. And part of it is there's no one way through it, no one way. But there are some common themes, and one of them is the connections with the families, the kids. Like Mr. Davis was eloquent about, I mean, we're reaching out, doing the best we can for each kid. The kids are, you know, we didn't invent trauma, right? We didn't invent that. We didn't invent different levels of learning styles. We didn't invent any of that stuff. But we now have these opportunities to grow and perhaps develop other strategies for the future. But number one is making those connections back with the families. It's a huge challenge, obviously it is, but you get a small taste of, I mean, we're up to it. We're up to the challenge. And we will continue to grow and get better and better at this. I just hope that we don't need to get better and better at this. Like I told you way back when, I didn't want to get good at setting levels. Well, enough experience, you get good at things after a while. So, and once again, I don't like to find solace in other people's misery, but I talk with a lot of different people across the state of Kansas, and the fact that we're having school, continually working toward meeting the needs of each kid, I'm proud. People are doing a good job. So that's it.
All right. We will move to donations.
Yeah, we have a donation from Cornerstone Church. Before Christmas, they'd reached out and said, hey, how can we help? And rather than going and buying stuff for us, you know, we dialogued back and forth, and they've brought us a $100,000. I better call them and tell them they changed the donation. No, $1,000 donation to the district, and I would appreciate you accepting that donation.
This is Ryan Ruda. I'll accept the $100,000 donation.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the $1,000 donation from Cornerstone Church. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Baseball fencing project.
Hey, Tom, step up to the mic, will you, please? Just in case there's questions. Okay, if you recall, we have our laundry list of capital outlay projects we're addressing. This one is a student safety issue, so we felt we needed to knock it off first. Other things in the coming down the pike, the playgrounds, the farm, track, bleachers. I mean, it's a laundry list of items to address over the future, but this tonight is about baseball fencing. We ended up receiving bids from 4 different companies. Tom and Lance and I sat down and made sure and Jerry, to make sure it's apples to apples. I mean, and make sure that whatever the bids we got is the same language, and they're all across the board. It's the same material, the same gauge, the same whatever. So we have 4 bids for you to consider. One is from Mammoth Construction for $38,571. Second one from Garden True Value for $52,000. Third one from Eldridge out of Great Bend for $58,420. And a fourth one from Superior Fence out of Dodge for $44,771. Now, and by the way, the board has the authority to reject any and all bids and or say we'll go with the best bid. The definition of best bid does not particularly mean lowest price. It's just not what it is. You have the leisure to go differently. But I will tell you, because the new player at the table here is Mammoth. You know, they're new to the area. Mammoth came to us because that's the group that's working with Lakin on their turf field. So they were in the area and said, let's get a meeting. Let's get together and talk. Well, come to find out, this group is out of Meriden, Kansas. And Meriden, Kansas is where I was the superintendent 6 years ago. And so I know the people. I know the people. The owner of this actually was a Rule 10 football coach for us when I was up at Jefferson West. I know the quality of work that they performed for Jefferson West. I know about the quality of work they performed at Seaman School District, my alma mater, which is right next to Jefferson West. So yes, they're new to the area, but they're aggressive about getting work in the area. So one of the questions might have been, well, who are they? Well, that's who they are. So, Tom, anything to add about any of the bids or?
Can you explain to me there on the Mammoth bid there, there's an alternate that has the dugout fence padding?
Right. That's just something they took upon themselves to give us. I've not even talked to Jerry about it. So tonight.
So the other bids did not have that alternate included?
No. And I would not recommend including that tonight, just because I've not talked to Jerry to see if it's really needed. They just added it in just for giggles, I guess.
Okay.
But I would, as far as an actual recommendation goes, I would recommend you accept the bid for Mammoth for $38,571 to complete our baseball fence project.
This Ryan Ruda, I would move that we accept the bid from Mammoth for $38,571 to complete the baseball fence project.
This is Casey Robinson, and I second it.
Okay, moved and second to approve the bid from Mammoth for $38,571 on the baseball fence. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? All right, now we will, personnel, 30 minutes
30 minutes. I stand by it.
to include,
Principals as we need them.
okay. All right, let's go in, let's say we go in at 7:35 for 30 minutes and include principals as needed and Dr. Myers.
This is Jill George, so moved.
Jill.
Second.
Ryan Schreifogel. Moved and second to go into executive session for 30 minutes at 7:35. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Yeah. Don't go home, Lance. Just
No, I won't be going home.
Hey, and also, you guys, the board presentation stuff comes to us from Holcomb Elementary School. In the extra donuts, cupcakes.
Awesome.
Talk to Steve earlier.
All right, we are back in session. Okay, let me get this thing straightened out. Okay, the first thing we need to do is, I need a motion to hire Scott Dirksen as Holcomb High School ELA teacher, as long as his dad never comes and visits.
This is Jill George, so moved.
Ryan Root, a second.
Been moved and seconded to hire Scott Dirksen. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I need a motion to hire Heather Julian as a high school biology teacher.
Ryan Root, so moved.
Jill George, second.
Been moved and seconded to hire Heather Julian. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I need a motion to hire Malazny Rodriguez as the Holcomb Middle School liaison, and that's a full-time position.
Jill George, second.
It's been moved and seconded to hire Malazny. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, I need a motion to hire Andrew Dingus as a route driver pending a background check.
Jill George, so moved.
It's been moved and seconded to hire Andrew Dingus. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I need a motion to approve the supplementals as presented.
Ryan Root, so moved.
Jill George, second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the supplementals. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. I need a motion to adjourn.
Jill George, so moved.
Second by Ryan Strebel.
Moved and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? All right. I used to have a